Hello and welcome back to the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast. I leaned in way too far there, but I don't care because we've got Will Kengor on. It's a very Pittsburgh theme today. We've got Kenji on. I can definitively tell you this is the longest podcast episode in the long, illustrious history of the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast. It's the longest one we've ever had. I can tell you that for a fact, but I think this might also be one of the best. Just an incredible chat. I hope you guys are able to stick around and listen / watch the whole thing. And there's going to be a lot less video in this one. That's a lot more for me to fill. So there's going to be a lot more photos in this one. But this chat goes so many places. The level of honesty is just incredible. I can't, I know I'm pushing my own content. I can't recommend this one enough. This just an incredible conversation. I don't want to delay it anymore, so here it is. Without further ado, the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast featuring Will Kengor. All right, guys, welcome back to the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast, episode number 15. I'm not sure what I'm more surprised by, that we've made it to 15 episodes, or we've made it through the first 14 without talking to this guy. I've got 2019 Somerset Patriots team MVP, Will Kengor, on the phone with me. Kenji, how you doing, bud?
Not bad. How about you?
It's hanging in there, man. We were talking a little bit before we officially got started here, and it's been rough, but we're both trying, So
yeah, that's all you can do. I mean, no one knows what's happening, so everybody's just kind of in the same boat. But staying safe with my family and kind of just relaxing. Finding some different puzzles to do, or watching every Marvel movie. There's not much else going on. So
yeah, I hear you. Trust me, I hear you. I'm starting a part-time, quote unquote, real job soon to kind of make it through all this. So I hear you, man. So
there you go.
I guess kind of in doing the research for this one, I think the thing that kind of struck me was I feel like I know Will Kengor, the baseball player, pretty well, but I really don't know that much about Will Kengor, the person. So I guess just kind of more off the field, what makes you tick? Like, what do you like? What are you into? Favorite sports teams, man? Just kind of let's get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh, so obviously diehard Steelers fan. Never really got into hockey. I can't ice skate, so that kind of crossed that one off the list for me early on. But yeah, I mean, I liked the Pirates growing up, but they were struggling. I was born in '92, so I didn't see them win very much until I think they had one good year when I was in college, or maybe first couple years of pro ball. So yeah, they've been a team I've always wanted to cheer for, but it's been tough because they haven't been putting a great product out there for a while. But yeah, other than that, I mean, like I said, grew up in Pittsburgh, went to Slippery Rock for college. Really enjoyed my time there. Got to play with some really good players at a Division II school, which I think gets overlooked quite a bit in baseball. And then, I would say off the field stuff. Obviously, my wife, Antoinette Kengor, is a big part of everything. I'm sure if people follow me on social media, they know all about my dog. I have a yellow lab who's a big boy, 90 pounds, maybe a little bit overweight, but he's very energetic and keeps us on our toes. And then, I mean, my family's still in Pittsburgh. I'm pretty close with them still. I really enjoy, doing some stuff off the field too. It's good to get away every once in a while. Big fisherman. Got into that in college, actually. My roommates were into fly fishing, and they kind of got me on that train. And it's been a good thing to, get away from the field sometimes. I mean, I do love baseball, and that's my, number one passion. And it can take over your life pretty quickly, especially when you become a professional. So it's good to have something to kind of take your mind off of it. And for me, that's, that kind of stuff, getting into the outdoors, hiking, fishing, anything I can do to get outside.
Okay. I didn't know you were a big fisherman, though. I guess people think Pittsburgh, I know they think big bodies of water, but are there good places to go and do that?
Yeah, so in the city of Pittsburgh, there's 3 major rivers that run through there. And those are, pretty mucky and pretty gross. But when you get out, an hour outside of Pittsburgh, you get into, pretty rural territory, and there's some really good places to fish up near, like Lake Erie, which is probably an hour and a half away from Pittsburgh. And then where I went to school in Slippery Rock, there's a lot of really nice streams and creeks that I visited regularly when I was in college, maybe a little bit too regularly. It's very tempting when you have all that time and the weather's beautiful every once in a while in Slippery Rock, and you get out and, fishing is a nice way to get away. So.
I gotcha. I do love Pittsburgh. My bachelor party was actually in Pittsburgh, believe it or not.
Wow,
there's
interesting.
Yes, there's a restaurant I like to go to in Pittsburgh called Burgatory as well. That that place is awesome. My God, you been there?
Yeah, so there's actually one like right by where I grew up, and my parents' house still is. And that's like the spot where, if nothing else, if we can't find something new or something different, it's kind of like the default. Just go back to Burgatory. Their milkshakes are unreal.
Yes.
I mean, the burgers are obviously very good, but the milkshakes are like the hidden item on the menu that you have to try.
Yes, I was covering a Steelers game one day, and I had a bunch of hours to kill, and I was like, "Oh, the name of this place sounds cool. Screw it, why not?" I was like, "Holy crap, this place is awesome!" So
yeah, it started off like it started off with just like one restaurant location in like right by my house, and then it kind of blew up. There's probably like 4 or 5, I think, maybe in Pittsburgh now, maybe a couple more, but it's still not like a very well known place, but.
It should be. It's awesome.
It should be. Yeah. I think Permani's kind of takes the cake when it's like places to go in Pittsburgh that everybody kind of mentions, like, oh, go to Permani Brothers, get a sandwich. But I think that Burgatory is creeping up on them because, like you said, it's really good. It is.
Are you a Permani guy? Because I'm not. Because I don't need like fries and crap on my sandwich. Just give me like a regular sandwich. Like, are you a Permani guy being from Pittsburgh?
I pick some of the fries off. Like, I'm not gonna lie. And if you've ever had that sandwich, you know like how aggressive it is.
Yes.
And I think the big thing that I like about Permani is I love coleslaw on sandwiches. I think that's a very like underrated. I don't know if you would call it a condiment, but like something that you could put on a sandwich to kind of enhance it. And I think they do a really good job. And then even for me, like any type of like pulled pork, like barbecue sandwich, put some coleslaw on it. Like I really like that as a topping. But yeah, the Permani sandwich with all the fries is a lot. If you're in the mood for it, I think it's definitely like you're gonna enjoy it. But if you're not ready to eat, till you're about to throw up, then that's not the sandwich for you.
Yes, like the grease trucks back in Rutgers, but that's an entirely different conversation. But I guess some baseball stuff too. Pittsburgh Central Catholic High. I read that you got cut from the team your freshman year and wanted to not play baseball anymore. Is that true?
That is true. I always kind of say this one. It's funny because I don't know. There's a lot of like contradicting stories about like the Michael Jordan. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I'm pretty sure he as a freshman or a sophomore he got cut from the varsity team.
Yeah, something.
And that's like a big like Michael Jordan got cut too. And I remember thinking that and looking that up when I was in high school and getting really frustrated because I think he still played on like JV that year or something. He was just upset that he didn't make varsity.
Yeah.
And I always say, like, yeah, but I didn't make any of those teams. Like, I didn't make the freshman team. I didn't make the JV team. I didn't make the varsity team. Like, that was the ultimate, like, slap in the face for me at that point. Especially, I was, what are you, 13, 14 years old? Your freshman year of high school?
Yeah, 14. I'm
a pretty young guy for my class when I was in school. So I didn't turn 18 until the summer before my freshman year of college. So yeah, I was young, but to have that happen at that age, and basically I went to so Pittsburgh Central Catholic is a all boys private school, and there were 220 in my freshman class, and I think that probably 30 guys, maybe a few more, tried out for the freshman team, and a few guys made JV, and that whole thing, but to be one of the, I think 10 out of the 30 that were cut or something around there as a freshman, for them to say I wasn't good enough to be even on the freshman team was in the moment, like at that time, just devastating to me as a kid. But in the long run, I think it maybe made me focus on baseball a little bit more because I played a couple other sports up to that point. And once that happened, I thought, I really, I loved baseball. At that point, I loved all sports because I was a little bit younger and I wanted to keep playing, but I realized that maybe baseball was something that I needed to improve at. So maybe I worked a little bit harder at baseball than the other sports and kind of took off, and my love for the game obviously grew and grew. And I came back my sophomore year and I made varsity actually my sophomore year, and then halfway through the year got sent down to JV. I also grew like 6 inches in between freshman and sophomore year of high school, which was obviously like a huge bonus.
Yes.
Like I think I tried out at like 5'4", and the next year I tried out at like 5'10". So it was definitely, I had a nice little growth spurt, which I'm sure didn't hurt. But yeah, so that was interesting story. But yeah, so I don't know if any of those guys listen to this podcast, but if they do, thanks for cutting me from that freshman team, because I guess in the long run it paid off. So
Yes. Is amateur baseball a big deal in Pittsburgh? Is it more of a football town? I guess how would you kind of categorize it for kind of the high school scene there?
yeah, it's definitely a football city. Whitfield football is like a huge thing. Friday nights are like a big deal. There's a lot of like NFL talent that's come out of that area. Our school, Central Catholic, has had like quite a few guys get to the NFL. Dan Marino went there. Mark Bolger went there. More recently, a couple other guys that have played at like major D1s. And then Woodland Hills is in their conference or section, I guess they call them in high school. And they've had like Jason Taylor went there. Ty Law went there. A few other guys, but like some serious NFL talent for a pretty small school in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And then basketball, I would say, is probably second. Terrell Pryor went to Jeanette in Pittsburgh. But yeah, like a lot of talent. And he was amazing at basketball in high school. That's what I think is so crazy. Like you see some of these unreal athletes that play multiple sports when they're younger. And I remember my freshman year of high school, Rob Gronkowski transferred to Woodland Hills for his senior year. And he played basketball against Central. I was a freshman. I didn't play, but I was like watching. And they just fed him in the post every single play. And he would just like take 3 guys on and just dunk over everybody. It was phenomenal to watch. And then watching Terrell Pryor in high school too. I mean, unreal. TJ McConnell went to Char Valley, and he's, with the 76ers for a while. And I'm not sure where he is now, but like he's in the NBA. There's some serious athletic talent that comes out of Pittsburgh. I don't think it gets its due when it comes to the NFL or the NBA and Major League Baseball. I mean, like we have a good crew of guys that still live in the Pittsburgh area that continue to play professionally. Some guys in the big league, some guys in affiliate, some guys in independent ball. But I think it definitely gets passed over as one of those like smaller cities that maybe doesn't get the respect it deserves.
Gotcha. So you make a name for yourself there. You end up going to Slippery Rock, like you said. It's a D2. I guess what are kind of the college options like for you at that time when you're getting ready to head out of Central Catholic?
Yeah, so my junior year at Central, I had a pretty good year, and that's kind of like the big year for visits and checking out where you're going to go.
Yeah.
Actually, I went to a few schools. There weren't really many like big D1 offers on the table. I had partials from like some smaller D1 schools. And then I had a really good offer from Duquesne, which is in Pittsburgh, D1. I think it's it was in the A10. And I took it. It was a good offer. I was going to stay close to home. My best friend had gone through Duquesne and was like pretty pro Duquesne. So I signed with them my junior year and kind of passed over some of the other options. And they actually cut the program my senior year of high school. I think before the season started, they cut the program because of Title IX. So they were cutting quite a few men's sports, I think, to try to even out because the football team was just dominating when it came to like scholarships compared to the female athletes. So yeah, that was kind of like another, traumatic moment in my life, if you want to call it that, when I was younger. Took that one a little bit better, I think, but kind of was scrambling at that point because I really wanted to play baseball in college, but I didn't know to what level I was going to get with it. It definitely was, at that point, I definitely wasn't thinking about professional baseball. I was just trying to get to a good school and play ball for 4 years and kind of see what happens. So I kind of like started my search over again. And at that point, a lot of schools, I mean, now it's crazy, but schools recruit so far in the future. So a lot of schools had kind of closed up I guess I was the class of 2010. They closed up their 2010 recruits and were already on, maybe even 2 years from then, the 2012 class.
Yeah.
So I was kind of out of luck at that point. And I basically just fell into Slippery Rock. So I had a guy that I knew that had gone there, and he actually played for the Wild Things for a couple of years. His name's Rich Mahalik. Rich Mahalik, if you listen to this, thank you for the information on Slippery Rock, because I probably would have never looked at it. But yeah, so I went up there and took a visit, and the coach there, who's still there now, and he's been there. Oh man, I think he's been there almost 30 years at this point. His name's Jeff Messer, and took a visit at Slippery Rock, and was up there with my parents, and got to talk to him, and just got a really good vibe from the entire university and the way they ran the program, and we kind of hit it off that first day. And for a Division II school, I was shocked at the facilities compared to a lot of the D1s that I had visited. Baseball field on campus, which that sounds like common sense, but it's amazing how many of those smaller D1 schools and D2 schools, even pretty large D1s, don't have a baseball field on campus. You have to commute to it,
Yep.
which is mind blowing at that level. But Slippery Rock Division II school, baseball field right on campus with a clubhouse, lockers, TVs, couches. I felt like I was in the big leagues at that point. So I committed there and went there and really enjoyed my time there and had a little bit of success. And, I still go back there quite a bit and keep in touch with Coach Messer, and his son is actually the assistant coach now, Billy. It's a great program. And anybody who's ever reached out to me about that school, whether it's in people from Pittsburgh or outside of Pittsburgh, I have nothing but awesome stuff to say about the way they run that program. And they've helped me, immensely, and they still do. I'm sure if I needed to do anything, they would help me get back. And they actually helped me when I was trying to finish my degree. After I finished school in 2014, I got drafted, and then I had a little bit of school to finish up, maybe an internship and a couple credits.
Sure.
And I had to go back, and they were so accommodating about yeah, we'll get you in. You didn't have to, do anything crazy, move up here. They got me in for some online classes and got me my degree. But yeah, they've been great, and I ended up again being a blessing in disguise. So it's crazy, but that's how things have worked out for me, I guess.
Yeah, and I know you went there for a journalism degree. Is that what you ended up finishing?
I did, yeah.
So I guess I never knew that. First of all, we could have plenty of journalism talks and plenty of advice on how not to get into this business for sure. But I guess what was the impetus for wanting to do that?
Yeah, it's really funny you say that, because I think that when I was in school was probably the peak, or the start of the peak of the internet boom with, everyone is a photographer, everyone is a journalist, everyone can shoot video now on your phones, and everyone can share on social media. And I just remember sitting in class, I think it was probably about my junior year, when stuff started to get serious about actual journalism courses, and a lot of the professors just saying, this is a dying industry. You're in a major that, there might not be enough jobs for the people in this room. And I just remember sitting there being like, dude, I'm so far down this rabbit hole, I can't back out now. What am I going to do? Change my major with 10 credits left? I don't know why you're telling me this, but but yeah, so I originally got into it because I do love, at a basic level, reading and writing, math skills. My dad was a math professor, and that didn't really translate to me for whatever reason. My mom is definitely the one that has a little bit more of the reading and writing skills. But yeah, so I've always loved to read and write, and got into a little bit of writing when I was younger. And my uncle was actually an author, and he had published 4 mystery novels, I believe. And I always looked up to him, and he was a big influence. And so I got into journalism, kind of thinking that I might use it in a sports journalism kind of way, like you have, or maybe even just get some more information on how to write and learn how to really use that degree in different ways. So we'll see. Maybe I come back to it someday. I'm not sure, but
yes, it's not much has changed from what your professor told you back then, for sure. So
yeah.
For better or worse. So I remember I did that story on you last year, kind of as being a yeah but guy, and I'm kind of curious how that kind of translates to the college experience, because in junior and senior years your numbers were ridiculous, but I think a lot of people maybe discredited that because it was at a D2. So how do you kind of feel like those numbers and those seasons kind of set you up for the path to eventually get drafted going forward?
Yeah, I think that's kind of been the case, and I think it is the case with everybody that is in a sport where there are so many people that are playing, and there are so many different ways that people see you nowadays between stats and online and in person and all that stuff, that everybody's just looking for a reason to kind of cross your name off rather than circle it. And for whatever reason, my name has been pretty easily crossed off a lot of the time. And I think that's, you run into that, especially as a hitter. As a pitcher, not to rag on any of my pitchers, I got a lot of good friends that are pitchers, but just to be blunt, they have it so much easier than we do. And especially a lot of D2 guys that are pitchers, a guy comes to see you, they stick the radar gun up and they watch your stuff. They don't really care what the opposing hitters are doing. It's 99 translates, whether it's in rookie ball, the big leagues, or some tiny school in the middle of West Virginia, so they can quantify what your velocity on your fastball is, what your spin rate is, all that stuff nowadays. As a hitter, there's a lot of intangibles that I think don't get measured. And the easiest thing to do is cross it off and say, the only reason why this guy's good is because at that level, the competition isn't that good. And as a hitter, it's hard to hear because there's only so much you can do. And baseball and hitting specifically is such a difficult task that anytime, at any level, if you hit over 300, you've proven yourself that you can hit at that level. And in my opinion, you should get a chance to move on. If you fail at the next level, then so be it. But I don't think there's a way to really quantify hitting. It's more of an intangibles thing. And you can see a guy take BP and say, this is the best hitter in the world, or this guy can't play in professional baseball. But until you actually, let him play in a baseball game, I don't think there's any really true definitive way to tell. And that's tough. And I think that's kind of the thing I ran into in Slippery Rock. I think not just myself. I know a ton of guys that I went to school with, a ton of guys that I played against when I was in college, and even guys that I go back and see now that they're at a lower level, D2, D3, NAIA, whatever the level is, and they're good ball players, and there are plenty of spots for them that they could come in and have success, but they just get written off because they didn't do it. And it's weird because I feel like even guys, say you go to LSU, great school, but they didn't want me, so I didn't have that choice. But say you go to LSU and you play 2 out of your 4 years and you hit 260 each year, you've had a better chance of getting drafted than a guy that goes to Slippery Rock, plays 4 years and hits 330.
Yeah.
And that's tough. That's tough to swallow. You have to do so much at those lower levels to even get noticed. I mean, I feel like I had a pretty good college career. And I got drafted in the 28th round as a senior and got $1,000 and a pat on the ass and said, okay, here you go. Go live in a dorm in Lakeland and see if you can play with these guys.
The old senior sign special, yep.
Yeah, and it's tough because I feel like you can't tell me that I didn't grind just as hard as those guys that were getting flown to their games and tutors helping them on the plane and this and that at LSU or Florida State or this and that. I was in class just the same as they were, if not more. I was in the field just as much as they were, if not more. I was playing in shitty weather. And we were all grinding, but because maybe they did it at a higher level, they think it translates better. And, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't think that, there's a across the board answer, but I think that, coming through the mud has its perks too. Cause I got to really enjoy, when I did get into pro ball and the last couple of years, I've got to really enjoy it because I know what it's like to, grind it out at a D2 or grind it out in college or high school or wherever. So,
yeah, kind of skipping ahead a few steps here and we'll circle back to a bunch of stuff, but you kind of mentioned the intangibles of hitting. And if you look at the back of your baseball card, you've always been a guy who's been able to hit. That's always more or less kind of been your best tool. And I'm curious as to why you think that is. Is it an approach? Is it just a physical skill? How have you been able to put it all together? You've always been a guy who's been able to hit.
Yeah, so I would say when I was in high school, I could hit. That was my thing. I was a shortstop that played decent defense, but could really swing the bat. Before that, when I was younger, I was always even in Little League, I was like a 2-hitter or like a 7, 8, 9 guy. And could always swing the bat, but didn't have much pop. Kind of got on base, could bunt, could run a little bit. And then got to high school, had a couple years where I really started swinging the bat well, and then got to college. And my first year of college, it was the year that they changed from Beezer to BB core bats, and that might sound like Spanish to somebody that doesn't understand it, but if you know what that means, then you know. Beezer was basically like hitting a golf ball, and BB core turned into like hitting a watermelon, and it just going absolutely nowhere. So I remember my first day of practice in college. I didn't know, because this was 2010. This is before, major social media influences. I think it's before maybe Twitter's around. I don't even know. But there wasn't the information spread that there is now. Right. And I remember coming into practice, and I had a bat. So I had my high school bat. Drop 3, fit all the specifications that we needed in high school. Metal bat. Like, I brought it with me to college because it's the bat I use. And then the team, obviously, like I think we were Wilson, so we had like DeMarini bats. And the first day of practice, the messer comes out and he says, nice to meet you guys. This is our first day of practice. There's some new rules this year that have been implemented at this level. We will be using new bats. And I was like, all right, cool. New bats. I get a new bat. That's great. Yep. And they passed out these white DeMarini, I don't even know what they were called, but they were white DeMarini bats, and they felt like they weighed 60 ounces. And I took BP the first day, and I did not hit a baseball past an outfielder. Like I couldn't even get the ball to the outfielders. I think I was hitting like duck farts in between second and short the whole round.
That's like me swinging.
And
Jesus.
And it was bad. It was pretty bad. And I realized in that moment, and then I realized throughout the year, my freshman year in college, I think I played like 23, 24 games. And just, I think I was coming in mostly as a defensive replacement late in games at second or third, because I could still field back then. And it was like, okay, this kid can't really hit, but he can play defense. We'll stick him at short. We'll stick him at second or third. And we had a really good team with a lot of upperclassmen, so I didn't really get to play much. And I also realized that all those guys that were playing, I mean, they're all really good athletes and really good baseball players, but beyond anything else, they could all hit. And I kind of saw that as a reoccurring theme throughout the entire league, and wherever I looked, it was like, okay, if you hit, you're in the lineup. I don't care if you're playing first base, center field, right field, left field, catcher, third, wherever. You're gonna be in the lineup if you're swinging the bat well. And at that point, I kind of just said, all right, let's like work on this more so than I ever had before. And that whole year, I was in the cage by myself, just kind of like grinding, grooving my swing, trying to figure out what I needed to do. That summer, I played in a college summer ball league in Pittsburgh. That was, oh man, I can't remember what it was called, but it was like local, and there were no like, it wasn't Cape Cod, it wasn't any of those places. It was just a local. If you were in college and you wanted to play, you could. There were a couple high school guys, quite a few college guys. And it was a good league, but it wasn't anywhere near the competition you get at those other places. It was all local Ohio, PA guys, and it was wood bat, and I was awful. I think I hit like 200 the whole year. But at the end of the year, I had one game and I hit 2 home runs, and I was like, oh, maybe I figured something out there. And for whatever reason, I went into the next year, continued to work, and ended up like in the fall of my sophomore year, kind of like figuring it out a little bit. And for me back then, it was all about the tee. I just got in there and worked on the tee constantly all day. And that's really kind of what started it. And I think for me at that point, it was just confidence. It was just, I had a good swing. I had a good approach, and it was just getting the confidence to understand that, I can compete with these guys, even though they look like they're grown men. And I was still, 19 years old. It was like, okay, you can do this. Just got to believe in yourself. And ended up having a good sophomore year. And then from then on, really, it's just been tinkering. It hasn't been any major overhauls or subscribing to any of these new or old swing thoughts. I don't know. There's just so much there's so much information, which can be good if it's shared properly, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like I don't think that there's one way to teach, and that's what I don't understand when there's all these guys teaching, this swing, or you get a guy on Twitter saying this, you get a guy on Instagram saying this, and those guys can be helpful if it's what you need, but everybody's different. I mean, you look at golf swings, you look at baseball swings. At the end of the day, you can break it down all you want, and I do agree that there are major points in the swing that you need to get to. But at the end of the day, if you're having success, what are you going to change? Like, why are you going to change to fit someone else's criteria of what you need to do? And I think that gets lost in baseball because the baseball swing is so quick and happens in a moment, and some of them are good and some of them are really, really bad because you're trying to hit a moving object. With golf swings, you can chop it up and cut it down and really look at, okay, this is what this guy does differently in order to compensate for whatever. And in baseball, you don't get that because you can have a guy that has, you can have Trout take a swing that is absolutely garbage at a pitch that bounces. And that's not his swing. That's not how he hits it. You throw it out. You scrap it. It's not, it's not part of what you're looking at because when he's on, he's good. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is just trying to be as consistent as possible. And over a long haul, 140 games, 96 games, whatever it's been, I think consistency kind of pays off.
Yes, we could get into a whole spiel about hitting Twitter and some of the arrogance that you'll find there, but that is an entirely different conversation for another time, so we'll save that one. But I do kind of want to circle back to the draft, and kind of your senior year is getting drafted on your mind, because Slippery Rock, I mean, it's produced some guys. Matt Adams is probably the biggest alum there, at least that I saw. It's produced some guys, but it's not the biggest school in terms of getting guys drafted. So is that legitimately on your mind, even with the crazy numbers that you're putting up to?
Yeah, so the only reason I will say yes is because there have not been a lot of guys drafted out of Slippery Rock. I think I don't know if you've did the actual research, but like maybe 25, 30 total in however many years. But in the more recent past, there's been quite a few, which is kind of strange because you would think it would be the other way around. But so when I was there, the year before I got there, Matt got drafted. And then my freshman and sophomore year, I don't think anybody got drafted, but we had quite a few guys that were trying on the cusp, really probably deserving of it, and it just didn't happen. There was a guy, Matt Howard, who our freshman year should have got drafted. I don't know how he did it. Ended up playing a couple years of indie ball. A couple pitchers that I thought 100% were going to go and ended up not. They played indie ball for a while in different places. But then we had a guy, Lou Trevino, my junior year, who is now in the big leagues with the A's, relief pitcher, unreal stuff, unreal guy, super nice. We played freshman and sophomore and junior year together. So having him there and having him, I think he got drafted in the 11th round our junior year, but he was putting dudes in the seats. So there were quite a few scouts there kind of buzzing around him, and I definitely benefited from that. And honestly, I don't know if it was me being arrogant or what it was, but my junior year, I thought 100% I was going to go. So I was actually in the Cal Ripken League summer ball that summer after my junior year for the second time. So I went back, and I was kind of expecting to not play in that summer league because I was going to get drafted and then go. And I don't know if I made somebody upset or I said the wrong thing or somebody didn't like me or I wasn't deserving. I'm not sure, but I did not get drafted after my junior year, which, again, was a big blow to me. I was kind of, at that point, maybe my ego was a little bit bigger, but I thought I was deserving. I think I was second in the NCAA in batting average that year. I think I hit 450, 449, something like that. So I think I had a pretty good year, and I thought I was going to go.
Yeah,
and
449, by the way.
449, sorry. And I didn't go, and that's okay. And I got to come, and again, I would say a blessing in disguise. I got to come back. I had a senior year with, my best friends to this day, and really got to enjoy that time. Got to, play another year under Coach Messer, and got to, be a college student. And my senior year of college, and I can't go back and have that one again. So I'm actually glad that happened. I may have gotten a little bit more money if I would have gone my junior year, but I don't think you can put a price on that senior year college experience with, those guys that I wouldn't trade for anything. But yeah, so I didn't get drafted. I kind of thought I would. And then senior year, starting that year, that was my number one focus. I wanted to keep my grades up, obviously, and, get as close to my degree as I could, but I wanted to get drafted. And I kind of put all my eggs in that basket and really, pushed for it and did everything I thought I could. It's crazy because for all like the kids out there and the guys in college that are trying to get picked up and drafted, you don't realize how much pressure it is. You got 50 games and you're a college student. And for me, it was like, if you don't, at that level, if I didn't hit 4 something with all these numbers in 50 games, I wasn't going to get drafted. Yeah. So you've got that whole fall, that whole winter waiting to try to get, just basically to put up numbers to try to get drafted. And I would debate that if I would have hit 330 my senior year, which is respectable at that level, I would not have got drafted. So at that level, you have to do so much that's where the pressure is just unbelievable. And yeah, so luckily it ended up working out, but it was, that was a tough year. I really, grinded it out and put a lot of hard work in, and I guess it paid off when you look at it now, but it was definitely an interesting year.
So how do you find out that it's the Tigers and it's the 28th round?
So my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, we were living in Pittsburgh, just kind of, so school was over and we're just kind of hanging out, living in Pittsburgh at my parents', don't really know what's going on. And at that point, I didn't have nearly the resources that I do now when it comes to people I knew or facilities to work out or all that stuff. So I was basically just hanging in limbo at the house, waiting to see if I got drafted. And day 1 came and went, and I believe day 2 came and went. I don't know if they're 3 days. I don't know. Anyways, whenever the day that I thought I was going to get drafted, because I knew there was no chance, and I actually got a phone call from a guy with the Tigers, and this guy drafted me, and I'm not going to say his name, but he's a scout with the Tigers. So if anybody wants to Google all the scouts of the Tigers, look him up. But I'm not going to say his name, but he called me the day before I got drafted and said, "Hey, Will, this is so-and-so with the Detroit Tigers. We're interested in drafting you, but it wouldn't be until late 20s. And I said, okay, that's fine with me. I just want an opportunity to play. At that point, you're a senior. You're getting $1,000 pretty much regardless. So I'm just trying to get, on the board. And he says, if you don't get drafted, go play indie ball. And that will cure your desire to play professional baseball really quick. It's not all it's cracked up to be."
Oh, boy.
And I said, what? That's your pitch? Like, that's the pitch you give? And you see all this stuff with the NFL draft just happening, and guys get phone calls, and, hey, this is, John Gruden, we're super, super excited to have you. I can't wait to get you out to the facility and see you. We're big fans of you. And I get a phone call that says, we might take you at the end. If you don't get taken, just shut it down or go play indie ball. That'll cure your desire to want to play pro ball. And that guy, God bless him. If he still has a job, I'll be amazed. And I hope he does. But it was eye-opening, and I think it was the first realization I had that where you get drafted does matter. And it sucks that it does, because the idea that everybody tries to pitch is you go in, whether you're a first rounder or you're the last round, you go in with the same opportunity.
Oh, that's
just not true. It's just not. And it's sad, but it's really not. So anyways, I get that phone call, and I'm really excited. No, so I get that phone call, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess that's, I can't say anything else. So I'm like, okay, thanks for the opportunity. Hopefully, you guys do take me. And that was the only phone call I got the whole draft. No other teams seemed interested. I don't know if there were, but at the time it didn't seem like there were. And so the last day or whatever day it was, I thought I was going to get drafted. My wife and I kind of planned out a day of stuff to keep my mind off of it. We went to the high school and kicked the soccer ball around. We went to a movie. So I was actually in Spider-Man when I got drafted. So I was in a movie in Spider-Man. It was probably one of the middle Spider-Man. So it wasn't Tobey Maguire and it wasn't the new guy, Tom Holland. It was like the middle guy. I don't know who that guy was, but like tall, skinny guy. Anyways, so I was in that and I got a phone call and it was them and they said, congratulations, you've been selected. And we were super excited. I know that it's funny because, you know, you talk to guys in the top 10 rounds and you tell them, oh yeah, I was 28th round, but I celebrated like I was a first rounder. And it was fun. It was great. I had a couple of my buddies came down that I played with and got to go out and have some drinks and really celebrate before I had to head out. And, yeah, that was a fond memory. And I'm forever grateful for the Tigers for, you know, letting me experience that kind of stuff. And, yeah, it was a good memory.
Yes. So pro ball is a very romanticized thing from the outside. If you don't know, you don't know. So did you know when you're heading to the Gulf Coast League that that's what is going to be? Basically, you know, very low profile, no fans, like more or less nobody really paying attention. I guess did you know that going in?
No, and I think that's something that I'm grateful for my parents for everything they've done, and they've been unbelievable support system over the years. And the only thing that I would have wished at that point was we did a little bit more research on what the hell I was getting into because, you know, they didn't really play sports. My dad's a huge sports fan, but never played it, and my mom played basketball in high school. But we had zero idea what to expect, and it was kind of one of those things where we didn't want to get ahead of ourselves by doing all this research before I got drafted. So I got drafted, and then we kind of tried to piece it together. You know, what does this mean? We knew there were levels to minor league baseball, but to be honest with you, we didn't know the extent to which there were levels. You know, I was kind of in the mindset of like, all right, there's a single A, there's a double A, there's a triple A.
Yeah.
I had no idea that there was rookie ball, DSL, VSL, GCL, low A, high A, short season A. Like, it was, to hear all that, I was shocked. And I also, I think I had it a little bit easier than most people because while Slippery Rock was an awesome place to play, if you're familiar with the location and the time of year that college baseball is played, the weather is brutal. And the fans, when it's 34 degrees and snowing, do not flock to the games.
No.
So I was kind of okay with the no fans thing. Like, as sad as that is, I had kind of done that my whole life. The most people I had ever played in front of before that was college summer ball, the Bethesda Big Train in the Cal Ripken League. Get like a really decent crowd, probably like a couple thousand, and that was, you know, unbelievable for me. And we played against them. I played for the Rockville Express, who probably had the worst attendance in that league, with a whopping like 6 people at every game.
Nice.
But again, it's okay. I played the underdog card, and it worked out well. But yeah, so I did not know what I was getting into, and it was a whirlwind for the first probably couple months between getting down there almost immediately after getting drafted. And then it's crazy, but you don't realize how much of a change it is. I mean, I was in college, so I was used to living on my own and in a dorm. And that's where they put us. We were in like an on-campus dorm kind of thing with the Tigers. And practice all morning and then games at noon in the summer in Florida. And every single guy there is just trying to get to Connecticut, which is their short season affiliate. And I showed up every day, man. Just get me to Connecticut. Just get me to Connecticut. And there was, I don't know, I don't make decisions, but it felt like there was a predetermined group of people that may have been picked slightly higher than me that were going to go to Connecticut regardless of how they were doing.
Funny
and
how
that's
works.
how it happened.
Yeah, funny how it works.
And then that's how it happened, and it's okay. I got to grind out in the GCL. And what's crazy is I don't care. At this point in my career, I've played in the Atlantic League against ex-big leaguers. I've played in the DR against current big leaguers. I've played in rookie ball. I've played in Division II baseball, high school, college summer ball, everywhere. Honestly, everywhere. The hardest place to hit, GCL, Florida. No questions asked. You get guys throwing 100, no idea where it's going. There's noon games every day, and you have practice before them. If you can put up numbers in the GCL, you're a good baseball player in my book. And yeah, that was tough. It was the thing that got me through that summer. And it's crazy to think about that. Guys, I dreamt about playing pro ball my whole life, and I'm talking about getting through the summer in the GCL. But honestly, the thing that got me through that summer was there were there were 4 of us that were college graduates or close to, juniors, seniors in college, that were all in the GCL together. Shane Zeal, Spencer Watkins, and Giancarlo Brignoni, and myself. And we were inseparable the whole summer because that was the group we hung out with. There was a lot of guys that were under 21 and even under 18 at that point.
Yep.
And we were kind of the guys that stuck together, and we were all there, and we kind of all agreed that we were going to be there for the long haul, which made it more acceptable because everybody else is thinking, I want to go to Connecticut. I want to go to Connecticut. And at that point, it wasn't in the cards for us. Shane, obviously, he was a UCLA catcher and 5th, 6th round pick. He was supposed to go, and he ended up hurting his finger, broke his finger in a game in the GCL, so he was stuck with us. And then the other 2 guys were D2 draft picks, late rounds. One was a free agent sign, and one was Spencer Watkins was a 30th round pick, I think. And he's still with Tigers. He was in AA, AAA last year, pitcher. Awesome story that he's still with them. And but yeah, so that summer, spent all my time with those guys, and they really helped me, get through things. And I think we all helped each other at that point. But that was a tough summer, and it's a lot different being that far from home with that type of environment. And it's not. If anybody out there that's played in the GCL, they know that it's not the most friendly environment at that point because it's cutthroat. You're trying to get out of there. You are the lowest block on the totem pole in the GCL, and you're just trying to fight to get anywhere else. So it's not a team. It's not team camaraderie. It's not fun wins. It's grinding it out every day for the summers in Florida. So yeah, that was an interesting one for sure.
Yes. Did the AAA game, did that mean anything to you? Because I mean, obviously there's a lot of September call-ups and there's a lot of shifting in the rosters, and they needed a guy to just fill the spot. But they could have called up anyone to do that. Did that mean anything to you at that time? Did you think it was more than it was at that time?
At the time, I thought it was a nice gesture. And the more I look back at it, I am grateful that they thought of me. And the crazy thing is that the guy who was their manager, I think his last name is Parrish, maybe Lance Parrish. I played for him for 1 game, so excuse me for not remembering his first name. But I believe it's Lance. But anyways, he played me in that game.
Yes, that is true. Yes.
Which blows my mind. And I don't know if he was just like, screw it, let's just try this. This will be funny. But it was crazy because I was like, all right, I'm going to go up here. I'll ride the bench. It was me and another guy that went up. He was a catcher, but he caught bullpens, and he did what I was expecting to do. And I played the whole game. And I was like shocked at the time, but looking back on it, super cool experience. It's funny. A lot of the guys that I work out with down in Florida now were in that game in some capacity, which is like really weird. But like Francisco Lindor was playing short for the Clippers, who was the opposing team, and I was on Toledo, and there were 2 guys on Toledo that I work out with in Florida, and I work out with Lindor, and it's like there's just a interesting group of people that were all there at the same time, and careers have gone all different ways from that point. But it's like that one day where we're all in one spot, super weird. But when I look back on it, I hate to say this, but it may have been because I'm from Pittsburgh and the game was in Ohio. But maybe that's just another benefit of being from Pittsburgh. I don't know. I hope they thought of me and they thought I could do the job, but it was also definitely really convenient for me to just swing by the game on my way home. But yeah, it was a cool experience, and I got a sack bunt down. I think I had some pretty good at bats. Lindor did throw me out on a ground ball that he had no business catching, but got a sack bunt down and made some nice plays at second. And it was fun. It was a good group of guys at that level. What's crazy now is they're all probably, if they weren't young then, they're all probably a lot older now. But it was a good group, and definitely a cool memory. And there were quite a few people in the stands, and my parents and my wife now got to come up and see it. So it was a cool experience.
So go up to A-ball the next year, Midwest League, West Michigan, everyday first baseman there. I look at the numbers. They look good. I see there's still a bunch of YouTube highlights from all the big moments you had there. So how do we go from that to what happens in April 16 and you end up getting released? How does that happen?
So the short version is I got released after spring training. The long version is I played every day at first base. I hit 285, quite a few RBIs, pretty like 5, 6, 7 in the order. I was not a first baseman, and they kind of moved me over there, and I just was kind of at that point like thinking I was going to be utility, but then they said I was a first baseman and whatever. So I went to the off season. We won the Midwest League Championship. That team is still, I think, one of the best teams I've ever played on. So many big leaguers now.
Yeah.
Mike Gerber, Kristen Stewart, Joe Jimenez, Spencer Turnbull. Just like off the top of my head, and I'm sure there's more that I'm missing. And then the guys that didn't make the big leagues are all unreal baseball players and great guys. Ross Kivett, Joey Pancake, Zach Shepard, Derek Hill, Rashad Brown, like guys, all Cade Savick, all guys that I've kind of run into at other points in my career. Cade, I saw in the DR, Gerber, and all the guys in the big leagues. Ross now works at University of Tennessee. Joey Pancake, like South Carolina legend. Just like so many great guys and good people. And that was a year that I will never forget. Great team, and then playoffs, like just huge win after huge win. Went to the World Series championship game, whatever you want to call it, and went to the 7th game, won it. Like, I don't know, just to go from the GCL to that was just like, okay, this is why I'm here. Like, this is why I'm playing, and really like refreshed my love for everything. And coming out of that season, like really, that season was so eye-opening for me too, just because I went from doing really, really well the first half, and I had a terrible July. I think I hit 330 the whole year. I hit 102 in July, and then I hit 300 in August. Like, it was just, July was a mental block. I had never played that long at that high of a level, and I crashed and burned. And I was proud that I came back and had a good August and contributed in the playoffs. And I don't know, it was a really great year, and I was riding high after it. Came back to Pittsburgh, spent my off season really, pedal to the metal, grinding, trying to put on weight, trying to do this, maybe become a first baseman, working over there. Just really, went all in. Came back to spring training, had put on some muscle, had put on some weight, was feeling good about where I was. And the whole spring training, I practiced with the high A team. I practiced with the double A team. But again, if everybody gets bumped down a level once big league camp releases. Yes. So if you're practicing in double A, that means you're slotted for high A, and so on and so forth. So I practiced with the double A team. Once the big league camp broke, the high A team then became the team I practiced with, and it was the exact team that was in West Michigan. We won the championship. The entire team basically got bumped up to high A. And I'm pretty sure it was the entire team, not almost. It was every single guy that was on West Michigan was now in high A. And so we're playing the games, and it's really sad. But like towards the end of spring training, whether you know this or not, like guys start to kind of peel off and have their little side conversations about living and place they're going to stay. But they have no basis for that, because truly you don't know where you're going to be. And I'm a prime example of that. So the manager in high A, gosh, now that's a huge blank. Anyways, this guy, he's an older guy. He's been the high A manager for a long time. High A for the Tigers is in Lakeland, Florida, Flying Tigers. And so everybody's kind of talking to him like, hey, where's a good place to stay? What are we going to do for this? Blah, 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 blah. So I'm like trying to feel him out. He's talking to us. Anyways, I'm like basically trying to figure out living at that point. Am I going to live in Florida? If I'm going to be here, like, where should I stay? So it comes down to and the other thing too is, and if you're in spring training and you don't do this, you're lying to me. If you don't look around and say, this guy's going here, which means I'm going here.
Sure.
And if you don't do that, you're a genius or you're just a liar. And so I'm looking around. I'm okay. There's X amount of first basemen. There's X amount of these people. I'm gonna be the first baseman in high A because I deserve it, and just from a logistics standpoint, that there's no other option. It's me. Period. So I'm like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And I'm playing well in spring training, like, for how spring training is. I feel like I've gotten a couple hits. I'm, playing a good first base. And the last day of spring training comes, literally the last day. The split day is the next day. We have a morning practice. Games are done. We have a morning practice. And the new director of player development for the Tigers, who is still currently there. I don't know if you guys follow the Tigers, but they've struggled.
Yes.
Anyways, he's still there, and he's still trying to right the ship. I don't know. It's been 7 years, but not my forte. But anyways, so he brings us all in, and he says, "Hey guys, I really appreciate it. It's been a great spring. The rosters are 99.9% done." And every guys are like, "All right, cool. We're set." Everybody kind of knows where they're going. Everybody has arrangements. We're set. And drivers break that day. And I think that flyers broke like a day or two later, something like that. So he's like, 99.9% done. To me, that's like, all right, so everybody's set. And we have a practice. So we have a really short practice. It's kind of basically just a walkthrough. And at that point, it's basically a walkthrough with your team. The last day of spring training, everybody knows you are officially in your groups. And you go through the practice, you go over whatever you need to go over, and then you're done. You're breaking the next day, you get out of there, you pack up, you drive wherever you're going, or you fly. And after we came in from the 2-hour practice, it's probably 11 in the morning still, and there's posted on the sheets, which I still think is unbelievable, that we're professional baseball players at this level, and at anywhere you do this, you post rosters and people that made the team and people that you post that on a piece of paper outside and expect people to just read it and then walk away.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That just always blew my mind at any level to do that to professionals or even kids. Call a meeting with everybody. Take your time, sit down and say, hey, you're going to go here. Congratulations. Or you're going to go here. That's not a demotion. We just think this is where you belong. Anyways, so they post the teams on the piece of paper, and my name is not on the high A roster. And I was like, all right, maybe I'm in low A. And I look, there's nothing on the low A roster. Sick. I'm in double A. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, not in double A. So I'm like, all right. So I look in the extended category, and I'm in extended. And I was like, oh, no. Like, what? How's that? Like, basically, like, shocked at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'm looking back at the high A roster because I'm like, all right, well, if I'm not slotted in as the first baseman in high A, like, who is? And there's a guy, again, I'm glad that I'm blanking on his name because for the longest time I was, he was my number one on my to-do list. But whoever he was, I'm sure he's not a bad guy, but it was a guy that was a free agent that they signed the last day of spring training, and they brought him in to play first base in Lakeland because they didn't think that I could do it. And I can't remember his name. Man, I wish I remember his name. But anyways, so I'm an extended. And it's, whatever day it is. And at the time, I'm pretty upset. And I call my family. I tell them, I'm an extended, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. And I, schedule a meeting with, the brass to go in and talk to them. And, again, the guy that is the director of player development for the Tigers was not in my meeting, which I was still am very upset about, that you're not going to give me the decency of showing up at my meeting to talk about where I've been placed. I guess he had better things to do. I don't know if he had a tea time or where he needed to be, but it was more important than whatever I was doing. So anyways, I met with the guys that kind of made the decisions for the Tigers at a lower level, field coordinator, some scouting guys, and they were all, very nice, and basically told me that he had told them that he didn't see me as a big leaguer, and he wanted somebody in high A playing first base that could be a big leaguer someday. at that point, I basically said, okay, thank you. If you guys don't believe in me that I can be a big leaguer, like, I don't really want to be part of this organization. Just because at that point, I talked about my parents, and who knows, maybe it was a huge mistake. Maybe it was the best decision I ever made. But I feel like at some point in your life, whether it's baseball or your normal job, any career path, if you are up for a promotion and you feel like you're deserving and you've done everything you possibly could and you get passed over, there's only so many times or there's only so many places where you're going to stick it out and wait for another opportunity. And at some point, if they tell you, hey, Mike, we really want you to be the editor of this newspaper, but, we don't think you can do it. And we don't think you're ever going to be able to do it. So you're going to be whatever you are right now for the rest of your life. If you're okay with that, fine. At that point, I wasn't okay with being extended rookie ball, low A guy. Yeah. I wanted more. So I said, basically, if you're gonna say that and you believe that, that's fine. But I'd like to be released. And they gave me this whole spiel about indie ball is not all that's cracked up to be, and it's tough and it's a grind. And at that point, I wasn't sure I was going to play indie ball. I just knew that I didn't want to be a part of an organization that didn't believe in me, to the point where, and I understand it, if they didn't think I was going to be a big leaguer at that point, that's their prerogative. But I just wanted the opportunity to prove somebody wrong. And if you're not going to give me the opportunity to prove you wrong, then there's nothing I can do here. So I asked for my release, and to their credit, they gave it to me. And then I started the long journey back to Pittsburgh and wasn't really sure where life was going to go at that point.
Yes. So, it is Wade Hinkle, who will not be on your Christmas list.
Wade Hinkle. Wow. Name drop. Yeah.
Yes.
Is he still playing?
No.
Nah.
Done after 2017.
No way. Ah, man.
Yes, we'll leave that one alone. I'm sure he's a nice man. Secondly,
I'm sure. Honestly, I've actually never met him or spoke to him. I'm sure he's a great guy. It's just one of those unfortunate things where if it was reversed and I took Wade Hinkle's job, they'd be like, "Oh man, Wade Hinkle, Will Kendra, he's the worst."
Yes.
So,
exactly. So, you end up going back home to Pittsburgh. I was going to ask you if going to Traverse City was to kind of stay in that Michigan area, but I guess you already drove back home. I guess how did it all kind of play out that you ended up kind of going back somewhat similar to where you had been in the year before?
Yeah, so I had absolutely no idea. So I had driven to Florida, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not real sure what I'm going to do yet. So I actually had my wife, my girlfriend at the time still, she she flew down and drove back with me, and we kind of talked about options on my way back. And I really didn't have any. I was kind of, who knows, but I was kind of expecting a few people to be like, hey, you want to come play for us? Regardless of where that was, I wasn't sure. I did have a guy in Pittsburgh. This is really funny. I did have a guy in Pittsburgh at a team that is a federation team. They're really, really good. They're super competitive. St. John's Lambros, I think. Anyways, it's like a men's league in Pittsburgh. They called me. They were the first team to call me. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. I just live in Pittsburgh. I'll play in this team for fun, and I'll get a job. But I'm fortunate enough for me. I had the Washington Wild Things called me, and they were interested. And then
that's Washington, PA, for people who don't know.
Yeah, Washington, PA. Yeah, and that's right in my backyard, which was like, oh, maybe that's an option. And then Dan Roan called me with the Traverse City Beach Bums in UP, Michigan, and basically, at that point, Traverse City, Michigan, when I did all my research, if anybody, I don't want to plug this too hard because I don't know how many people are going to listen to this podcast. If there's 2 million listeners, Traverse City is going to get flooded with vacations. But if you haven't been there, go. It is one of the most beautiful gems in the entire world. It's on Lake Michigan. In the summer, it's 75 and sunny every day. The winter is another story. I've never been there in the winter. Don't go in the winter. But in the summer, it's 75 and sunny. It's on the lake. There's beaches. There's a Cherry Fest. Again, who knows if this stuff's going to happen. I think they just canceled Cherry Fest this year. But it's the most beautiful vacation spot in the UP, and it's a must-see for everybody. Yeah. So basically, I got that pitch from Dan at the time, who's the manager, and I went online and Googled it and checked it out and saw that he was not lying, and it is a beautiful vacation spot. And at that point, I was kind of like, all right, I'm going to go up here and play one more summer, and It's going to be indie ball. It's going to quote the Tigers scout that drafted me, it's going to cure my desire to play professional baseball.
Yes.
And I kind of wanted to get out of Pittsburgh. Whether it was this or not, it was like, I got released. I don't want to play in my backyard in Pittsburgh. I want to go, get away from all the people I know, kind of start over and see if Traverse City is a place that I want to live for a summer. But to be completely honest with you, it started as just that. I wasn't trying to get picked up. I wasn't trying to do anything else with baseball. I wanted one more summer of baseball. And that was the plan. That was the plan going into it. And obviously that didn't work out. But it's good that it didn't work out because, a couple other things happened later and then led to this. So.
Yes, I feel awful that I've kept you this long, but there's still a couple more things to get into here.
Yeah, no.
I guess just
what am I doing? I'm locked at home. What else am I going to do?
Dude, I'm interviewing a pro ball player in my pajamas right now, so I hear you. It's okay. Just the player coach role that you had kind of later on in your time in Traverse City. I know you and I have talked about that before, but just to be that young, I think you were 25, 26 when you had that and have that responsibility. What was that like to deal with?
Yeah, so if it would have been a different league, it definitely would have been a little bit more challenging with my age. The only reason why I think it worked so well there was because in that league, you have a lot of guys that are fresh out of college, and guys that play a year rookie ball or a year short season and then get released. So my experience level at that league at that time was actually pretty high, and I had 2 years in Traverse City before that. And grew a pretty good relationship with the front office, the owners, the manager, everybody that had been there. And going back my third year, I felt like my first year I got my feet wet, did well, kind of made a name for myself. My second year, I showed everybody kind of what I could do. And my third year, I felt like I needed a little bit more on my plate just because I to go back a third year and not try to move on to a different league or a different team, it was kind of like, okay, what's the next step? I didn't really have any other offers like from the Atlantic League or the American Association at that point. So I was kind of just like, okay, let's go back to Traverse City. We'll do this half coach, half player thing, make a little bit more money and see where it goes. Maybe coaching is the next step. And it was awesome. The guys that were there on that team made it the best that it could have been for me because they were unbelievably respectful. And what I wanted to kind of cultivate there, and I think we did it, which is a super cool idea, for anybody, any age, any level, is a relationship with your hitters that is more like an open dialogue and less like a coach-player relationship. Because with hitting, I feel like there are so many different ways to do it. Like we talked about before, there's so many different ideas and thoughts and this and that. And it's a really good tool to be able to talk about and kind of express what you're feeling mentally, physically, whatever it is, and have a kind of an open dialogue back and forth between player and coach. And we would have hitters meetings before every series-ish. Sometimes we were a little loose with that, maybe it was every week. But we would just come in, and sometimes it would be a rundown of okay, we have, Smith, Jones, and whatever pitching, and we're going to see this guy's a righty, this guy's a lefty, blah, blah, blah. Other times it would just be, hey, Jim, how are you feeling in the box? How are you feeling mentally? You're doing really well. What are you thinking about? Or you're struggling a little bit. What are you thinking about? And I think that's a good thing because at the end of the day, at these levels, you don't have sports psychologists or therapists or people to talk to. So a lot of times I feel like it gets bottled up. And if you're not comfortable sharing those fears or even talking about the success you've had, it can really weigh you down or fester and cause you to struggle a little bit more. So I feel like it got to a point where I felt like everybody, it's weird, but everybody on that team that was a hitter felt safe talking to other hitters about stuff and not, I'm going to keep this private because I'm embarrassed about it, or I'm going to keep this private because I'm doing well and this is what I'm doing and I want to do better than this other guy, which I feel like happens quite a bit because at some levels you're competing against most levels in affiliate ball, but you're competing against guys on your team. So if I'm doing something really, really well and some other guy wants to know, if we play the same position, why am I going to tell him and get him, promoted over me? So it's a tough balance when it comes to that. But I think at indie ball, you get that true camaraderie and team environment that you might not get in affiliate baseball.
Yeah, I remember this was something I kind of picked your brain on in the first time you and I talked when you signed in Somerset, was kind of the whole feeling of that all of the teams at bats were kind of your at bats, and you weren't really able to kind of like let down or take a mental break or anything like that. So how much of a relief then was it to come to Somerset and not have to deal with that?
Yeah, I mean it's exhausting, and anybody who's ever tried to do the player coach thing, or anybody that's experienced that knows that. I'm sure even coaches, period, when you're not able to go up there and do something for someone else, it's frustrating, but it's also really scary because you have no control over the situation. So if you're working with somebody day in and day out as a hitting coach and they're struggling, you take that on. You take that on as your struggle. You're not succeeding, this, that, and the other. So if there's a guy that you're working with closely and he's not seeing success, personally, you take that as, oh man, like we need to work harder. We need to change something. We need to do this. And it does get really taxing on coaches and players. And I feel like when you're trying to do both, it can be really, really challenging. But getting to Somerset and getting kind of to focus on me a little bit more. And it was great because we did have a pretty good open dialogue last year with hitters. And there's obviously a lot of guys from different walks of life, different experience levels. And it's crazy, but everybody there has a different approach and a different, mechanism and a different thought process and a different everything. So to get to hear some of these people that, have had really, great success at high levels, and then even to hear people that have come from low levels like myself talk about, what they do best. It was really interesting. And I think Somerset did a good job last year of kind of cultivating that, the open dialogue and really sharing, even though maybe we didn't have as much success offensively as we would have liked. I feel like we did a good job of, trying to keep things fresh and, staying on top of the offensive side of things.
Yeah. So your role in the lineup last year stayed pretty consistent, but defensively you had a big chunk of games at first, but you played a lot of third, which you hadn't really done before in pro ball. A lot of corner outfield too, which I know you adjusted to fairly well, but how difficult was that to kind of make those adjustments and not really kind of have that set everyday spot like maybe you'd been used to?
Yeah, so that's the first year I had done that, and I really thought that it was going to be hard. And it was in the beginning more mentally than anything else, because every day I would kind of come in and check the lineup and see a different number next to my name, and
yeah,
it would get frustrating because when you're used to playing a certain spot or even one position, whether it's third, first, short, wherever it is, you kind of feel like you did something wrong when you get moved. And I think that plays a role in just the way, Brett Jody handles the lineup. He's not afraid to move guys around. And I think that positionally, he's not afraid to move guys around, but he's also not afraid to move guys around in the lineup. And I think when I first got there, it was a hard adjustment because people told me that he wasn't afraid to shake things up with the lineup, but I think sometimes it's tough to read into whether he's moving you because he thinks you failed and he wants to do something else, or he's moving you because he just wants something fresh. So I would go play third base and I would think I played well. And the next day I would come in and I'd be at first and I would think, did I screw up at third? Is that why I got moved?
Yeah.
Just because I had never played for someone that had, changed the lineup so much. And we had a lot of versatile guys, which I think kind of threw me for a loop in the beginning of the year. And it did make it tough where I come in every day and I'm like, man, did I do something wrong? Is Skip pissed at me? Is that why he moved me? But we had a good conversation about it. And it seemed like the best option for the team and for me was to get me at different positions and get seen at different positions and try to basically build my resume to make it so that I can play multiple positions at a high level. And once he did that, I kind of started coming in each day saying, what does it matter where I'm playing? I'm going to go out there and do whatever I can. And if I'm there the next day, I'm there. And if I'm not, I'll be fine wherever I am. The only other really tough thing for me during the year is trying to balance getting enough reps at each position defensively while not like burning yourself out and running yourself into the ground before the game even starts. Because if you're going to take fly balls in left, fly balls, and if you play the outfield, fly balls in left are not the same as taking fly balls in right.
Sure.
It's completely different. So like, it's crazy. You can't just go out, I'm going to take some fly balls. You got to take them in left or right. And then I'm going to take ground balls. Okay, are you taking them at third? That's different. You got to work on your throw across. Are you taking them at first? That's different. You got to work on your footwork and your double plays. So for me, it was tough. I tried to, wherever I was playing that day, get work there. But then when I would get moved, it would be hard because say I played, whoever got injured for like he had an ankle and he was out for 2 weeks. Well, now I'm playing third base every day for 2 weeks. So every day I'm over there getting my ground balls. And then when he comes back, it's like, okay, we want to get so-and-so in the lineup. Let's move Will to first. Well, now I haven't been at first base in 2 weeks. So I haven't taken ground balls there. And, so it was a tough balance. And especially with how many games we play and the amount of travel and everything, it can be daunting to try to get work at every position. So that's probably the toughest part for me is, literally getting ground balls, fly balls, throws from whatever position I'm playing that night.
Yeah. So you put together the year that you did last year, 321, 15, 65, all-star game, team MVP, all that stuff. There's no negatives individually to a season like that. But when you do put together a year like that and you're coming back for the next year, and I guess I'll censor myself later, is it, like how do I top this? How do I match this? Did I set the bar too high? Is there any mindset like that at all?
Yeah, so I feel like if I was at the peak of baseball, so if I was in the big leagues and I went out and had that kind of a year, I think there would be pressure to do it again because you are expected. You're at the highest level and you performed at your highest level. You got to do it again and again and again. For me, I'm still at a point where I'm trying to improve every year. So it doesn't really feel like pressure to go out and do what I did again because we didn't win a championship. I didn't get picked up. I played winter ball, but I'd like to play winter ball longer and get more of an experience. So for me, it's like I had a great year, and I'm proud of all those numbers and everything I accomplished. But obviously, I need to do more. So it's like I'm not really nervous about repeating what I'm doing. I need to do something different and more and better in order to get to where I want to be. So it seems like that's kind of been the mindset every year, everywhere I've been, whether it's in college. I had a great year. Go out and do it again. Well, you got to do more. You got to do better. So I think, trying not to just say, I just want to do what I did last year again, and saying instead, I want to progress in my career further, wherever that may be, whether it's, I have the same type of year and I get an opportunity somewhere else, or I have the same type of year and we, win a championship, or I have a better year and we win a championship. Like whatever the steps need to be, I feel like I'm still trying to improve on everything every year. So if I'm improving, then I feel like there's no way I'm ever going to regress.
Yes. So I guess then on the flip side of that, and I know you hate the team questions that I ask you sometimes, but I don't really have much of a choice. Last year, obviously, especially the second half, collectively didn't go the way anybody wanted it to. So if we do get a season, if we do get back to baseball, and who the hell knows at this point, but if we do, what has to happen to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to answer that one, just because, especially in indie ball, there are so many unforeseen circumstances between guys getting picked up, guys getting contracts in other countries, guys retiring. It's a really unique setting where if you're the best team in the big leagues for the first half, unless you have massive injuries, you're going to have the same team second half.
Yeah.
And we had a completely different team in the second half. And I'm not saying that's an excuse for how we played, but there is just another level of turnover at, the indie ball level. But for me, like when I look back at last year, I think that the big thing, and I've said this before, I don't think it's a big secret, but I don't think that we handled losing very well as an organization, as a team, as individuals, everything. Because I'm not used to losing, and I don't think anybody in that clubhouse was.
No.
And I don't think anybody in that organization was. So when we started to lose a few games, instead of it being, okay, you know what? We've lost 5 in a row, or we've lost whatever in a row. Let's take a step back, take a deep breath, reevaluate, and let's move forward and let's get back to what we were doing the first half. I think what you saw was a snowball effect to a T, where we lost a few and we didn't quite know how to stop the snowball, because maybe we weren't well equipped to do it, or maybe we haven't had that experience before as a group, where instead of saying, okay, now that like it's hit the fan a little bit, we need to pull together instead of, pulling apart. And I think that we didn't do a very good job of that. And that's on players, that's on coaches, that's on organization, that's on everybody. And I think that it's a really good opportunity to use it as a learning experience, and to know that just because a few games don't go our way, it doesn't mean that the season is lost. And you saw that firsthand with the fact that we were even remotely in any type of playoff hunt towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
Is a testament to how good we were the first half, and the fact that in the second half, if we wouldn't have pressed the panic button so much and everybody wouldn't have been on sell, let's get out now, then we could have calmed down and salvaged it together. Instead, we learned a valuable lesson, and I think everyone in the organization learned a lesson, including myself, where, next time, if that happens again, and it's bound to happen, you're gonna have teams, especially at that level, you're gonna have teams that are really, really good for a little bit, and then they lose some guys, and they have to kind of refine their identity. And I think that it showed us as an organization, when we do start to lose guys at a certain rate to different teams, or if we do have a few games that don't go our way, we always need to get back to what we do well and what we do best. And then we'll be, in the long term, that consistency thing over 140 games is kind of the same idea individually and team. If you go out and play consistently good baseball for 140 games, it's better than if you play great baseball the first half and terrible baseball the second half. And I feel like the other thing that I noticed, obviously it was my first year in that organization, but there was a lot of emphasis on winning the first half.
Yes.
And I'm all for winning the first half. I have no problem with winning the first half, but I want to win the season. And I think if we can change the narrative to, let's get a good team from start to finish, and when the chips are down, our record will be good enough to make the playoffs, rather than let's put all of our eggs into one basket and make it in the first half, and then who cares about the second half because we already made the playoffs. Well, if it looks like the way it usually does, the teams in the second half that win are going to go into the playoffs stronger than the teams that win the first half.
Yep, that's historically been a problem in Somerset too. They'll win the first half, and then the second half there's a lot of turnover, a lot of floundering, and then who knows how it goes.
Right. So I think that there needs to be maybe a longer term picture, because I love the short term goals. Like, I love if we win every series throughout the year, we don't need to sweep. We don't need to win 10 in a row. Let's win 2 out of 3 every single series. And that's not realistic, but it would be a great opportunity. And I think that, there are times where maybe that is possible, and, we win 5 series in a row, 10 series in a row. Well, if you look up after that and you look at your record, you're going to have a pretty good record. So if you can keep it to realistic short-term goals, and then let's take a goal for the whole season to make the playoffs, rather than let's win, 50 games or whatever it takes in the first half. It's like, okay, well, there's a whole season here. Let's focus on like the long term rather than the short term, and then we crash and burn in the middle, and then we try to figure it out at the end. Let's take a more long term approach when it comes to that.
Yeah, I guess we'll get to see if that gets to happen this season. But
if there's long term, I guess who knows?
Yeah, there might only be one half. Who knows? So that might actually work out. Yeah. But I did want to ask you about the Dominican too. You brought that up, and getting to play there and kind of get that first experience of getting to play outside of the country. What was that like?
Oh man, crazy. So like, from a kid that went to a D2, got cut from his high school team, all that stuff we kind of talked about, and if you've listened to this, like, you followed the journey is pretty standard until you get to a certain point, and then it kind of gets crazy. But for me to get, released by the Tigers, playing indie ball, to get that opportunity to go there and play against those guys, it was amazing. I think at first I was a little overwhelmed, between language barrier, just the amenities, what you're used to, where you're living, how you're traveling, all that kind of stuff. It's different, and Escogido does an amazing job down there of taking care of you. But at the end of the day, it's you're living in a different country that speaks a different language. And my Spanish is decent, but it's not on par with the way they speak it. So it was definitely a learning experience, and I'm super grateful that they gave me the opportunity to come down there. And my numbers, in my mind, and I think they share the sentiment, my numbers might not tell the whole story. And I feel like they got a good taste of what I could do in a short period of time, and had some really good at-bats, had some really good swing stuff in the baseball. And for the short time that I was there, just didn't find any holes. But it was a good relationship, and I feel like they're hopefully wanting me back next year, and definitely be a place I would love to go back to. The environment over there is crazy. If you ever get a chance to go down there and watch a game, I don't know if you've been, but
Nope.
It's wild, man. It's every night is Game 7 of the World Series. People playing drums, people screaming and yelling. It kind of has a soccer match vibe where you're almost chanting throughout the whole game rather than cheering at specific plays. But dude, it's an amazing experience, and I would love the opportunity to go back. I'm hoping they have some form of winter ball this year. Who knows with all this craziness? But so it was definitely eye opening for a kid from Pittsburgh to go down to the DR and get to play in front of all those people. But super cool experience, and I hope I get to do it again.
I think the last thing I have for you is just, and it's not the greatest question to end on, but 27 years old, you're kind of on that fringe bubble of what teams are looking forward to maybe give an opportunity to in affiliated ball. Do you kind of, again, if there is a year, do you kind of go into this year thinking shoot, this might be my last chance?
I didn't until you just said that, but no, I'm kidding. Obviously, that's always in the back of your mind, and I agree, and I think everybody would, that there's a certain point in your career where you start to realize, where you are, maybe where you're trying to be, or what your goals are.
Yeah.
And I do hold out hope this year, and even years future. I think the best thing that happened to me was I took a little bit of time and did a little bit of research and found some good stories of guys that have kind of gone through a similar career path as me, and they've kind of been guys that I've looked up to. Maybe I don't know them personally, but I kind of follow their career and see what they've got to do. And I don't know if he listens to this podcast. I hope he does. But Ryan Court, if you're out there, I don't know him personally. I missed him in Escogido by a week or 2 weeks. I was looking forward to getting to meet him, but I didn't get to. But we know a lot of the same people. He actually trains with a guy that I played with in Traverse City. He played with Holmberg for a couple of years there, and he's been in a lot of places that I've been. It's crazy. Obviously I'm a weird stalker of this guy now, but he had played, I think he played affiliate ball for a little bit, didn't really get too high. Then he played indie ball for quite a while. I think he had some time in the Can-Am or the American, one of those two. And then he got picked up, played a little bit of affiliate baseball, got released again, has kind of bounced around. He was in Sugarland a little bit last year, I think at the beginning of the year. Again, we didn't play them, so I never really ran into him. He's played in Escogido a few years. Similar offensively and position-wise, he kind of plays everywhere. But if you know who he is, he got his major league debut last year and homered in the big leagues, which is the coolest thing for me to see. I think he's 31 now. But a true grinder that's really seen it all and been a lot of places. And when I see the career that he's been able to grind out of this thing, it's amazing. And I think it's kind of one of those stories that I look at, and I think he's obviously amazingly talented and works really hard. But he's somebody that I kind of have looked at and want to kind of model my career. He's obviously not that much older than me, but I just see a lot of similar stepping stones when it comes to the things he's done and what I'm trying to do. And that'd be a really cool comp for me someday if I do get to make my major league debut ever. but we'll see.
Yeah, I guess I was intending on that being the last question, but I guess I do have one more that kind of came to mind. And was it hard to, I guess, is it hard to be that optimistic when you did have the year that you had last year and you weren't able to get an opportunity?
Yeah, so I think that it's like a double-sided sword, whatever you want to say about that question, because it is frustrating that I did really well and wasn't given an opportunity. But I guess on the flip side of that, what's the alternative? I don't do well,
Sure.
and I'm excited that I could have a good year. So, I mean, it sucks. You know, I feel like I did enough. And maybe again, it's like the draft. It's like the low A. It's like whatever. You know, you always think you've done enough, and I think that's the true measure of whether you can live with it, whether you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know, I did enough to deserve it. If they weren't willing to give it to me, you know, that's on them. And at this point in my career, I feel like I've done enough where I feel confident that, you know, I could compete against those guys. I have. And if they're willing to give me a chance, I'll take it. And I'll run with it, and we'll see where it goes. But I don't feel like I can say, you know, I didn't have great years, but, like, I could still do it. And I know people like that have, you know, maybe not had the best career, but they always say, you know, next year's my year, and, you know, I'm going to have a great year, and then I'm going to get picked up. And that's a great attitude to have if you're one of those guys. And, you know, that is how it happens. You know, you learn something new, you figure something out, and then boom, you take off, and you're in the show the next year. But I guess for me, it's been a little bit slower of a grind, and I guess I wouldn't have it any other way. That's just kind of how my career's been. If you look back at, you know, the recap we just did, but it's kind of like, okay, you get knocked down a little bit, you get back up, and you prove people wrong, and then you get to a new level. It kind of happens again, and then you prove people wrong. So I'm hoping that maybe, you know, the next realistic step for me is hopefully have a good year in Somerset. If something happens, it happens. At this point, I can't control it. And then my next goal is to go to winter ball and do what I did here. You know, be there the whole time, play well, make a name for myself. And then at that point, if I've played on different continents or I've played in different leagues and I've had success everywhere, and you still aren't willing to give me, you know, that type of opportunity, then I can really say, you know, that's not for me then. I've done everything I could, and I'm okay with, you know, wherever my career goes from here. But what has been good about, you know, what's been great about Somerset and what's been great about John and Brett and, you know, the Califers and everybody, and even you and everybody that I've met since I've gotten here, is I have had a little bit more of a feeling of people in my corner and people helping me to get jobs and get seen and get, you know, exposure. And I hope that those opportunities continue. And I feel like the question originally was, you know, are you upset that you had a good year and you didn't get a chance? Well, yeah, but again, like I said, if the options are having a good year and not getting a chance, or having a bad year and not getting a chance, I'll take the good one, and hopefully we'll build, and maybe they need to see some consistency. That's always what I hear. So maybe year 2 in Somerset will be my year.
Yeah, so Kenji, this was a hell of a lot of fun, man. I'll be honest, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, good.
Wasn't sure how this was going to go. It was either going to be 15 minutes or an
Terrible.
hour and a half. And I wasn't sure because, I mean, like I said, I knew you, but I didn't really know you super well off the field. So now I feel like I know everything about you, and I hope everybody who's checking this out did too, man. So I really appreciate you taking the better part of a day to chat with me, and whatever happens going forward, man, hopefully I get a chance to run into you, and I'll see you there, man.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for having me. It was good. It was good talking to you. Obviously, I want to give you all the time in the world, and this is a good time to give it to you because I have literally nothing on my plate. So,
likewise, sir. So now is the perfect time to bang out all these podcasts. So, like I said, man, appreciate it. And if we do get a season, I can't wait to see you in that clubhouse again, dude. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, sounds good.
All right, guys. Thank you so very much for checking out the incredibly long but incredibly fun chat we had with Will Kengor, the 2019 Somerset Patriots team MVP. A very well-deserved honor, and whenever this season does get going again, I can't wait to see what he has in store. And that was one of the things we kind of covered in that conversation was how hard will it be to kind of match or even possibly raise the bar on such an incredible year that he put together in 2019. So we have that to look forward to, hopefully, this upcoming Atlantic League season. And also, upcoming on the podcast, the next few episodes, we taped a few more already. We taped 2 in one day. We got Mike Ullman and Mike Antonini coming up in some order as your next 2 chats. Then I've got a few more lined up after that. Guys, these aren't going away. These aren't going away. You guys like them too much. I can't do it to you. So, until then, stay safe, stay inside, shave your beard without telling anybody, and please wash your damn hands, people. My goodness. For the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast, I am, of course, Mike Ashmore. Please, please, please stay safe, and I'll see you guys soon.